Hi everyone, we're Mimicker, here to introduce all kinds of knowledge, even the stuff we didn't know about. Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we grab a whole stack of your sources on a topic, cut through all the noise, and really pull out those fascinating bits of knowledge. Today we're jumping right into a topic that seems, really familiar, maybe even straightforward, badminton. But honestly, even if you follow the sport pretty closely, I think you're going to discover some surprising depths today. We're talking intricate physics, a history that's, well, not what you might think.
It's absolutely right. Our mission really is to unpack all these sources and just peel back the layers on this sport. We'll be looking at everything from the, frankly, jaw-dropping speed records, seriously, wait till you hear these, to the really subtle, almost invisible physics that control how that little shuttlecock flies. You're going to get a whole new appreciation, I think, for the precision, the power, and the sheer scientific brilliance that's packed into every single rally. The idea is to give you those aha moments, so you feel genuinely well-informed, but without feeling like you're drowning in information. So yeah, settle in. This should be really insightful and fun deep dive.
Okay, so to kick things off, let's just start with something that honestly blows people's minds, even people who know sports really well. Badminton is officially the fastest racket sport in the entire world.
It sounds wrong, doesn't it, when you first hear it?
It really does. I mean, when you think fast racket sports, maybe you think tennis serves, right? They push past 200 kilometers sometimes, or maybe squash, with that intense close quarter speed. But badminton, it just completely redefines fastest. Okay, get this. Back in 2017, there was this Danish player, Mads Peter Kolding. He hit a smash, clocked at an unbelievable 426 kilometers per hour.
426.
Yeah, which is what, about 264, 265 miles per hour? That alone felt like it was pushing the boundaries for something so, well, light.
Okay, what's really fascinating there is that even that incredible speed, that benchmark, it was completely shattered just recently. It really shows you how athletic performance and even the equipment tech keep evolving. The official Guinness World Records for the fastest badminton smash, they were set very formally April 14, 2023 at the Yonex Tokyo factory gym, actually. And the numbers, like you hinted, they are just unreal.
Okay, lay them on us.
Right, so in the women's singles category, Pearly Tan Kungli from Malaysia, she hit a smash clocked at a staggering 438 kilometers per hour.
438, that's already faster than Kolding's old record.
Exactly. But then, the men's singles record. This is the one, held by India's Satwik Siraj Rankireddy. He achieved an absolutely astonishing 565 kilometers per hour.
565.
5 kilometers per hour.
That's, let's try and put that in perspective. That's faster than a high-speed train.
Oh, easily. Faster than a Formula One car going flat out.
Right.
Faster than a lot of small planes can even fly.
565 kilometers per hour. Wow. When you think about that, the sheer velocity, it doesn't just blow other racket sports out of the water. It puts them in a totally different category. A top tennis serve, maybe 250 kilometers, squash, less. Badminton is literally more than double that speed. It just makes you wonder, how on earth can an object that weighs, a few grams, how can it be hit with such immense, almost like ballistic power? And maybe more importantly, how is the game even playable if something's moving that fast?
It really does create this captivating paradox, doesn't it? You've got this object, weighs less than 2 pennies, like you said, yet is propelled at speeds that just seem to defy common sense, way beyond what we see in sports with much heavier balls like tennis or baseball. And the challenge, of course, isn't just generating that insane power. It's how do you control it? How do you make sure the game stays this strategic battle, a game of skill and wits, and not just, an unreturnable blur of feathers?
Right.
And that's precisely where the unique design and the really intricate physics of the shuttlecock itself come into play. That design allows for both that incredible initial speed and a remarkably quick, almost instantaneous slowdown, deceleration. We're definitely going to dig into the mechanics behind that controlled slide a lot more later on. It's ingenious, really.
Okay, yeah, looking forward to that. But with speeds like that, 565 kilometers, you'd almost assume the sport has some kind of modern, high-tech origin story. But the story behind its name, badminton, which sounds kind of quaint, right? It's just as interesting and takes us somewhere completely different. Much more aristocratic, actually. The modern game, the one we basically recognize today with the rules, the court setup, all that, it was first properly introduced in 1873 at this grand country estate in Gloucestershire in England.
The name of the estate.
Badminton House. Simple as that.
Right.
Can you imagine? You're just, having a game on your lawn, maybe adapting something you saw somewhere else, and suddenly the whole world starts calling this global sport after your family home? That's quite a legacy for a house.
It is quite a legacy. But if we sort of connect this to the bigger historical picture, it's not just a charming little story about a fancy house. While Badminton House was definitely the place where the modern game got formalized and got its name in England, the sport's actual earlier roots, more informal origins, they go back further and to a different continent entirely. Specifically, back to 19th century Pune, which used to be called Pune in India.
Ah, Pune. I've heard that connection before.
Exactly. British military officers who were stationed there, they played a game known as Pune, or sometimes the Pune game. It was basically a forerunner to modern badminton. Played with rackets, played with the shuttlecock, shared a lot of the basic ideas. It was apparently quite popular, a way to pass the time, maybe beat the heat.
Makes sense.
So when these officers returned to England, they brought the game back with them, introduced it to their social circles. And it was there, at Badminton House, probably under the Duke of Beaufort's patronage, that all these sort of informal rules and ways of playing started to get, well, standardized. The core rules that define the sport, now standard court size, net height, maybe most importantly, a proper scoring system. That's where they really began to take shape. It turned this casual colonial pastime into a proper competitive sport, something suitable for, wider competition.
So it really highlights that journey, doesn't it? How sports, like ideas or culture, they travel, they adapt, they get formalized through that kind of exchange.
Precisely. Cultural exchange and standardization hand in hand.
Okay, so we've got the mind-blowing speed, the surprisingly aristocratic name origin connected back to India. Now let's shift focus. Let's talk about the actual star of the show, maybe the unsung hero. The shuttlecock itself. That feathered missile. It looks so simple, right? Just a little cork nose and some feathers stuck in it. But when you actually look closely, it's a marvel of precision engineering.
It really is deceptively complex.
What I found amazing was that each regulation shuttlecock uses exactly 16 feathers.
16, no more, no less.
Not 15, not 17, exactly 16. And here's the detail that really got me. Those feathers. They typically have to come from the same wing of the bird, either a goose or a duck.
Ah, yes. That detail.
That doesn't feel random. That sounds like it matters.
Oh, it matters immensely. That detail about using feathers from the same wing, it's not just some quirky manufacturing habit. It's absolutely fundamental to the sport's demand for hyper-precision.
Yeah.
It's all about the aerodynamics. Using feathers from the same wing ensures optimal aerodynamic stability and, crucially, incredibly consistent flight. Well, think about it. Feathers from the left wing and the right wing of a bird aren't perfectly symmetrical. They have a very slight natural curve. If you mixed feathers from different wings, they'd have these tiny, almost microscopic variations in curvature, maybe in stiffness, even how the little barbs are structured.
Okay.
These tiny differences, you wouldn't see them with your naked eye, but they'd add up. They'd lead to unpredictable flight. The shuttlecock might wobble, or drift sideways, or just not fly true when it's hit hard.
So using feathers from the same wing means they all curve the same way.
Exactly. They all have the same inherent aerodynamic properties. This dedication to uniformity, right down to the individual feather, is what allows for those incredibly precise drop shots that just kiss the net cord, or the smashes angled perfectly down the line, or that delicate net play. In competitive badminton, every millimeter, every fraction of a second counts, and the flight consistency you get from using same wing feathers. It's absolutely crucial for players to execute shots with confidence and accuracy. Without it, frankly, elite-level control would be almost impossible.
That makes total sense. Precision down to the feather source. Amazing. You mentioned goose or duck feathers, though. Does the type of bird actually make a difference in performance?
It absolutely does. And the choice between goose and duck feathers is a really neat example of practical material science in sport. Goose feathers are the gold standard. They're what you'll see used in professional matches, in high-level tournaments.
Why goose?
Because goose feathers are naturally thicker, they're more robust, and significantly more durable than duck feathers. This extra durability means they can withstand the incredible forces from those, 500-plus kilometer R smashes we talked about. They keep their shape and flight characteristics for longer during really intense rallies. And beyond just being tough, goose feathers also offer slightly superior flight performance, a more stable, more predictable trajectory that the top players really rely on.
Okay, so goose for the pros. What about duck feathers then?
Duck feathers are much more common for training, for practice, and just for recreational play, like when you're playing in the park. They're generally a bit lighter, not quite as durable as goose feathers, but the big advantage is they're significantly more affordable and easier to get hold of.
Right, cost is always a factor.
Absolutely. So while duck feather shuttles might not give you that absolute elite-level flight consistency or last quite as long, they do the job perfectly well for everyday use. So you see, whether you're a world champion or just having a hit in the garden, the humble shuttlecock is this little marvel of both precise craft and smart material selection, tailored for different needs and budgets. It's a really understated bit of kit that packs in a surprising amount of engineering.
It really is. And speaking of understated, let's talk about the weight. You mentioned light before, but how light? A standard tournament-grade shuttlecock weighs only between 4.74 and 5.50 grams.
Tiny. Absolutely tiny.
I mean, that is literally light as a feather. To put it in perspective, like you said, less than 2 U.S. pennies, maybe the weight of a single grape. Just think about that. An object weighing so little can be launched at over 500 kilometers per hour. It's almost impossible to reconcile those two facts in your head. Which naturally brings us right back to that paradox, that question we touched on earlier. How can something so incredibly light move with such insane initial speed, but then slow down so dramatically, like it hits an invisible wall almost, enough for opponents to actually react after it crosses the net? It's a fascinating puzzle, isn't it?
It really is, and this points directly to the fundamental role of aerodynamics in badminton. It's where the shuttlecock's design really shows its genius. That incredible speed followed by that dramatic rapid slowdown. They aren't contradictory at all. They're actually two sides of the same aerodynamic coin. The shuttlecock is essentially engineered. It's a masterclass in controlled flight, designed specifically to do both things.
To be fast and slow.
Exactly. It allows for those immensely powerful attacking shots, but it still gives the defender a fighting chance to react to keep the rally going. And the secret? It lies entirely in its unique construction. Unlike a solid ball, right, the shuttlecock has that heavy cork base at the front. The nose. The nose, exactly. And then the wide feathered skirt at the back. So when it's hit, that heavier cork nose drives it forward, gives it that massive initial velocity, cuts through the air. But here's the clever bit. That 16-feather skirt at the back, it's not just for stability. It acts like a highly efficient, you could almost say intelligent parachute.
The parachute, okay.
As the shuttlecock flies through the air, that wide open cone shape catches a huge amount of air. It creates enormous air resistance, drag.
Okay.
And that resistance is the invisible brake you were talking about. What's really remarkable is just how quickly this drag takes effect. It causes the shuttlecock to decelerate incredibly rapidly, losing a huge chunk of its initial speed within just the first few meters of flight after being hit. And that rapid slowdown is absolutely vital for the game. It's what gives players time to react even to the fastest smashes.
So the skirt creates drag, which slows it down. Does it do anything else?
Yes, crucially, that drag doesn't just slow it down, it also acts as a vital stabilizer. The shape inherently forces the shuttlecock to orient itself correctly in flight cork first, feathers trailing, nose down on the descent. This ensures a consistent, predictable trajectory for players, even after a really hard, chaotic impact. So yeah, it's a true masterclass in controlled flight, enabling both that extreme power and the necessary strategic defense.
Okay, moving from the shuttlecock itself, let's zoom out a bit and look at badminton's journey globally. Its path to becoming such a prestigious sport, I mean, for a sport that started informally in India, got its modern name from an English manor, it's certainly had quite an impressive journey. And arguably, the ultimate stamp of approval came with getting into the Olympics.
The Olympic journey is key, definitely.
It first showed up as a demonstration sport, right? Back in 1972 in Munich, which is a big step in itself, kind of showcasing it to the world.
A proving ground.
Exactly. Then it was a demonstration sport again in 1988 in Seoul, building more momentum. And then finally the big moment, officially included as a full Olympic sport in 1992 at the Barcelona Games.
A huge milestone.
Yeah, that's massive. It really cements its place on the biggest global stage, recognizes it as a truly elite athletic competition.
And the impact of that Olympic recognition, you really can't overstate it. It just thrust badminton into the global spotlight like never before. Hugely boosted its popularity, its reach all over the world. Inspired whole new generations of athletes everywhere. But even before the Olympics, badminton had already built up some serious prestige and deep roots, particularly with one tournament, the All England Open Badminton Championships.
Ah, the All England.
Yeah.
Still huge today.
Absolutely massive and venerable. It was first held way back in 1899.
1899, wow.
Yeah, making it not just one of the most prestigious, but flat out the oldest badminton tournament in the world. It's been the benchmark for excellence for over a century. attracting the absolute best players from around the globe long before the Olympics even thought about including badminton.
So that long history from, colonial pastime to demonstration sport, then full Olympic status, plus the legacy of tournaments like the All England, it really shows the sport has staying power, doesn't it? Real tradition.
Exactly. It's not some flash in the pan. It's got this rich heritage. It constantly evolves, standardizes rules, attracted top talent for, well, over 120 years now, cemented itself as a major international sport way beyond just something you place in the backyard.
Right. Okay, so we've covered the speed, the shuttlecock's amazing design, the global journey. Let's circle back now, deep dive into those aerodynamics we touched upon. That paradox, again, 500-plus kilometer rate smashes, yet it slows right down after crossing the net. It still feels almost like magic. How does it do that? After being hit with such incredible force, how does it decelerate quickly enough for someone to react, move, and actually play a return shot? What's the core physics driving that?
Yeah, it does feel counterintuitive, but it's pure, brilliant aerodynamic engineering, not magic at all. That unique structure, heavy front, light, wide back, is absolutely the key. It transforms the shuttlecock into this incredible, self-stabilizing, self-braking missile.
Self-braking, I like that.
Well, it is. When it gets hit hard, that cork nose, the dense part, leads the way. Cuts through the air, gives it that huge initial speed. That's step one. But the genius part, as we said, is that 16-feather skirt. It's a precisely engineered structure. It acts like a super effective parachute or air brake.
Okay.
As it flies, that cone shape just scoops up air, creates massive drag. And this drag is the invisible brake. And it works incredibly fast. It scrubs off a huge amount of that initial speed within just a few meters. That's why players have time to react. And remember, the drag also stabilizes it, forces it to fly cork first, ensuring it travels predictably. It's this perfect balance of initial velocity and rapid, controlled deceleration built right into its shape.
That is just wild. A built-in aerodynamic brake system. Now, speaking of subtle forces and precision, I read something fascinating. Did you know that a shuttlecock doesn't just fly straight? It actually spins naturally in flight.
Yes, the natural spin.
Apparently, it's because of the slight angle those 16 feathers are set at. They act like little vanes, causing it to rotate, which adds gyroscopic stability, like a spinning top is stable.
That's exactly right. It's another layer of its inherent stability mechanism.
But here's where it gets really interesting, where it goes from just physics to actual strategy, maybe even art. How do the skilled players use this? How do they manipulate this natural spin or impart their own spin and turn it into a deliberate weapon, a secret advantage?
Right. And that leads us perfectly into probably the most subtle, but maybe the most intriguing piece of physics in badminton.
Okay, I'm ready.
We need to talk about something called the Magnus effect.
The Magnus effect. Okay. Sounds scientific.
It is. So, next time you're watching a match and you see one of those incredibly slick slice drop shots, the kind that seems to just curve or float unnaturally, dying just over the net, completely out of reach.
Yeah, those impossible shots.
Lean over your friend, give them a little nudge, and just whisper, that's the Magnus effect in action.
Huh. Okay, I'll try that. But what is the Magnus effect exactly?
So in simple terms, the Magnus effect is a force that acts on any spinning object when it moves through a fluid, and air counts as a fluid here. This force causes the object to deviate, to curve sideways, or sometimes lift up or dip down from the path you'd expect it to take if it wasn't spinning.
Why does it happen?
It's basically down to pressure differences in the air around the spinning object. The side of the object that's spinning into the oncoming airflow experiences slightly higher air pressure. The side spinning away from the airflow experiences lower pressure. This pressure difference creates a net force, pushing the object towards the lower pressure side.
Okay, a force caused by spin and movement through air.
Exactly. And you've definitely seen it working in other sports, even if you didn't know the name.
Like what?
Think about a curving free kick in soccer, right? A banana kick that bends around the wall. That's Magnus effect.
Oh, okay.
Or a topspin forehand in tennis. The ball dips down sharply over the net much faster than gravity alone would explain. That's Magnus.
Right. The dip.
Baseball pitchers live by it. Curveballs, sliders, they rely entirely on spinning the ball to create that sideways break. Magnus effect again. So whilst it's really obvious with balls, it absolutely plays a role in badminton too. Just perhaps in a slightly more fleeting and subtle way, because the shuttlecock is, well, not a ball.
Okay, that makes sense for balls. They're round, they spin easily. But how does this force, which sounds like it needs significant spin and a solid object, How does it actually work with a feathered shuttlecock? It looks so different. It's so much lighter. Does it really spin fast enough or have enough surface area to create a measurable effect? Or is it just, theoretically there, but too small to matter in a real game?
That's a really sharp question. Because you're right, it is different from a ball. And this is where the shuttlecock's unique aerodynamics meet the physics of spin in this really precise, almost fleeting interaction. So when a player hits a slice shot, where the racket face cuts across the shuttlecock instead of hitting a flat, they deliberately impart a very rapid spin, often a sort of diagonal spin.
Okay, so they make it spin fast.
Exactly. Now, for the Magnus effect to have its maximum impact, the axis of that spin needs to be, ideally, almost perpendicular at a right angle to the direction the shuttlecock is initially traveling. And this optimal condition, it really only happens in the very first moments, right after the shuttlecock leaves the racket strings. We're talking milliseconds.
Just milliseconds.
Yeah, maybe the first, say, 30 milliseconds or so of flight.
Mm-hmm.
During that incredibly brief window, the Magnus force creates a noticeable momentary lift or sideways deviation. Often, it's an upward lift.
But only for 30 milliseconds. Why so short?
Because of that brilliant aerodynamic design we keep coming back to. The massive drag from the feathered skirt very quickly takes over. It forces the shuttlecock's rotation axis to align itself with the direction it's traveling. It stabilizes it, cork first. Once that alignment happens, the conditions for a strong Magnus effect disappear. The effect becomes minimal, negligible really.
Yeah.
Drag and the shuttle's natural flight path dominate. So it shows you the incredible precision and the split-second timing needed for top players to actually use this effect. They're turning this tiny, transient physical blip into a real strategic tool.
That is mind-bogglingly precise. 30 milliseconds. Does it matter if the player is left-handed or right-handed? You mentioned the shuttlecock has that sort of handedness because of the feathers. Does that interact with the slice?
Another excellent point. Yes, it does have a subtle influence. The shuttlecock is chiral, as you say. It has an inherent asymmetry because all 16 feathers are angled the same way. Because of this, a slice shot hit by a right-handed player and one hit by a left-handed player can actually impart spin in opposite directions. Maybe clockwise versus counterclockwise if you look from above.
Okay, different spin directions.
But, and this is the crucial bit, even though the spin direction might be mirrored, the effect that momentary Magnus lift still occurs in both cases. It still tends to lift the shuttlecock upwards briefly at the start of its flight, regardless of handedness.
So the lift happens for both?
Generally, yes. The fundamental upward deviation happens for both. There might be very subtle, almost imperceptible differences in the exact trajectory or the way the lift manifests due to the interaction of the spin direction and the shuttlecock's chirality, maybe combined with the player's arm angle. At the absolute elite level, that tiny nuance could potentially enhance the deception of a slice shot even further, make it just that little bit harder to read.
Okay, so it happens, it lifts the shuttle for both lefties and righties, very briefly, but how much difference does it really make? We're talking 30 milliseconds, tiny forces, super light object. Is this deviation actually big enough to matter in a real game situation, or is it more like, a cool physics footnote?
No, it could definitely be significant, especially at that top tier of play where, as you said, tiny margins decide points, games, even championships. Research using those high-speed cameras has shown that this Magnus lift isn't trivial. It can actually alter the shuttlecock's trajectory by a measurable amount, somewhere between 20 and 70 centimeters.
20 to 70 centimeters, that's quite a lot, actually.
It is, especially when you consider the context. Think about an elite player hitting a super tight met shot, aiming to land it maybe just an inch over the net cord to make it unreturnable.
Yeah.
That 20, 30, maybe even 50 centimeters of extra unexpected lift, even if it only lasts for a fraction of a second, that can be the difference between a perfect winner and a shot the opponent can just reach.
It buys it a tiny bit more airtime, maybe, or makes it float slightly higher.
Exactly. It forces the opponent to make a micro adjustment in their timing or their positioning that they weren't anticipating. Maybe their racket angle is slightly off or their footwork isn't quite right because the shuttle didn't drop exactly where their brain predicted it would based on the initial hit. This isn't just theory. It's a built-in deception tool that top players use, consciously or subconsciously, to create openings that wouldn't otherwise be there. But again, it's crucial to remember, after that initial burst, maybe 30 milliseconds, the massive drag and the shuttle's natural stabilization completely take over. The Magnus effect fades into the background. It's like a brief flash of influence, but it can be a really powerful, game-changing flash.
Okay, so diving into the physics just a bit more then, what's the underlying principle? How does this force actually get generated on something like a shuttlecock?
Well, the fundamental physics principle is the same as for a ball. The strength of the Magnus force on the shuttlecock is proportional to a few key things combined. It's proportional to the density of the air, denser air, potentially more force. It's proportional to the shuttlecock's speed through the air, faster speed, more force. And it's proportional to the spin rate, faster spin, more force. You multiply those factors together, essentially.
Air density, speed, spin rate. Got it.
And the direction of the force. There's a handy physics rule, often called the right-hand rule, that helps visualize it. If you imagine pointing your fingers in the direction the shuttlecock is spinning and your thumb in the direction it's moving forward, then the force pushes out from your palm.
Okay.
So for a typical slice shot from a right-handed player, that combination usually results in an upward force, the lift we've been talking about. For a left-handed player, the spin direction might be reversed, but because of the shuttlecock's shape and how air flows around it, the interaction can still often produce a similar upward deviation. It's a really neat interplay between motion, spin, shape, and the air itself.
That is some seriously detailed physics for something that happens so fast and seems so simple. But how do we know this is true? How can scientists actually observe and measure something that only lasts for 30 milliseconds? You definitely can't see it happen in real time. It sounds almost impossible to prove.
Yeah, you absolutely can't see it with the naked eye. That's where modern science and technology really step up. The observational proof for the Magnus effect in badminton comes primarily from these highly specialized high-speed camera studies we mentioned. Researchers use these incredible cameras. We're talking cameras that can shoot at maybe 3,700 frames per second or even faster.
3,700 frames per second.
Or more. At that kind of frame rate, you can effectively slow down time. You can dissect those crucial first 30 milliseconds of flight into incredible detail, looking at it frame by painstaking frame. And these studies have successfully done just that. They've captured and, importantly, quantified that subtle lift caused by the Magnus effect during slice shots. They can measure the deviation, track the spin rate, calculate the velocity. It provides solid empirical evidence that this effect is real, even though it's transient, and shows how it influences the trajectory.
Wow. Science finding the invisible forces.
Exactly. It's a fantastic example of how precise scientific tools can uncover the hidden complexities in actions that look simple on the surface, reveals that whole ballet of physics happening in sports.
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting for the actual players, right? All this complex science, these tiny forces, the milliseconds. What does it actually mean for the athletes on court, the ones fighting for every point, looking for any edge they can get?
Well, for those elite players, understanding this, or at least having an intuitive feel for it, and more importantly, being able to master it, to execute those slice shots precisely, that's a significant competitive advantage. It's another tool in their toolbox. It allows them to hit more deceptive, more effective slice shots. By controlling the spin they put on the shuttlecock at that exact moment of impact, they can subtly manipulate its path. Not just sideways, but crucially, vertically too.
Give me an example again.
Okay, imagine that perfect slice drop shot. It initially comes off the racket looking like it might just clear the net comfortably. But then, because of that little Magnus lift, it seems to just hang in the air a fraction of a second longer than expected, maybe float slightly higher, before suddenly dipping down sharply right near the net.
Making it super tough to reach.
Exactly. It messes with the opponent's timing and anticipation. Or think about a cross-court clear shot, maybe a slice clear. Instead of flying in a pure arc, that little initial Magnus lift might just carry it an extra few centimeters deeper, landing it right on the baseline when the opponent expected it slightly shorter.
Forcing them back, maybe a weaker return.
Precisely. This kind of nuanced trajectory control can totally disrupt an opponent's rhythm and response. It forces them to misjudge the flight path, maybe stretch awkwardly, react just that split second too late. So just to quickly summarize the key points for you, our listener, this Magnus effect. It happens right after a slice shot is hit, for only about 30 milliseconds. But in that time, it can noticeably impact the trajectory, causing maybe 20 to 70 centimeters of lift. And whether you're left-handed or right-handed, you'll experience this lift. The spin direction differs, but the upward push is similar due to the shuttle's design. The practical importance. It enables those really deceptive shots and gives players fine control over where the shuttle goes, especially vertically. So yeah, it's definitely scientifically observed, but it's often very transient. It's most obvious and most strategically important in advanced play, where those tiny deviations can absolutely change the outcome of a rally and add a whole layer of trickery to a player's game.
Okay, let's unpack this one last time then. What an amazing journey we've been on today, really digging into badminton. We kicked off with those just unbelievable smash speeds, topping 565 kilometers per hour, shattering records, completely changing how you might think about the sport's power.
Mind-blowing numbers.
Totally. Then we looked at its origins, that surprising path from the courts of Pune in India to the name coming from Badminton House in England. A real story of travel, adaptation, standardization.
A rich history.
Absolutely. And then we spent a lot of time on the star, the shuttlecock itself. An engineering marvel, right? From those exact 16 feathers, all from the same wing for perfect consistency,
Precision engineering.
to its incredibly lightweight and that ingenious design, how it acts as both a powerful rocket off the racket and this perfectly tuned aerodynamic brake.
The parachute effect.
Exactly. Then we went deeper into the physics, how that design creates both power and that rapid slowdown, making the game playable. And finally, we pulled back the curtain on that secret weapon, the Magnus effect, turning tiny amounts of spin for just milliseconds into a real strategic advantage with those deceptive slice shots.
Subtle but significant.
It really feels like you just took this comprehensive deep dive into the hidden science of a sport that maybe on the surface seemed pretty simple, but it's revealed as this true masterclass in precision, power, and just the elegance of physics in action.
And maybe this raises an important question, something for you, our listener, to think about after this. If a game like badminton, something that seems so familiar, maybe something you've played casually yourself, if it holds such deep, intricate scientific principles, such a blend of physics and clever engineering just hiding beneath the surface, well, what other everyday activities or other common sports might be hiding similar depths? Similar levels of scientific wonder, of ingenious design. Think about the things we do all the time, the things we take for granted. What other hidden scientific masterpieces are just out there waiting for us to ask the right questions, to look just a little bit closer?
That's a great thought to end on. What else are we missing? Thanks for tuning in to this episode. If you enjoyed our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell.